Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. We are setting up my bullet journal for 2024 and can you believe that it's already the time to set up for a new year? It's kind of insane. How are you? How have you been? How did 2023 treat you? How are you feeling for the upcoming 2024? Are you excited? Are you feeling kind of meh about it? I'm a little bit in between. I feel both excited and kind of meh. Excited because I don't know why, something feels good about this upcoming year. Meh because it's a leap year, and the last time we had a leap year, it wasn't very fun. And also the last time we had a leap year, I was excited for the year, and then it was 2020. So yeah. Feeling a little bit on the fence about it, if I'm being honest. But we are working through it with good vibes and hoping for the best, I guess. For my theme for this upcoming year, I wanted to do something fun. Last year I went for calm vibes with both the setups because I did do an initial setup with the pandas. I will link the videos if you guys want to take a look. And then I did have to do a second part to my bullet journal, which that one was Lilies of the Valley, and both were really cute. The first one for the pandas, it was like a calm spa-like vibe, and I feel like the second one was like calm lullaby vibe. It makes sense if you watch the videos. I will link them in a playlist at the end for the video for you guys. But yeah, for this one I wanted calm, cheerful, and fun and colorful and bright. So yeah, I was initially gonna go for like a house theme. I have this issue. If you feel the same way that I do, hopefully this will make you feel a little bit better. Whenever I'm planning for my bullet journal themes, I usually go for my first idea is always something that is a little bit too ambitious, because it's always usually something a bit too detailed or too intricate, because I always go for things that are like super high in symbolism, or that I like the idea on like a meaning level, you know, but that it's a little bit too time consuming or too detailed, and then it will be a little bit of a hassle to work through. And I always have this idea of like trying to push myself into making something different. But what ends up happening is that I figure out eventually that it's way too much work, and that it's not turning out the way that I've pictured in my head. And then another idea for a theme pops out in my head, and it's a lot simpler. It's much simpler, but it's super easy for me to put into practice and to adapt into my style and to make it my own. And it works out way better, which is what happened with this theme. I initially wanted to make a theme with houses because the whole idea was for feeling at home in like 2024 in most areas of my life. So the idea was to make like small little houses, a lot of drawings of detailed little houses. And I really liked the idea until I realized that my architectural drawing skills are not it. And so it was taking me a whole lot of time to just sketch out one house that I was happy with, let alone several of them to make several spreads. And then I was going in my kitchen for breakfast, and I was looking at the number balloons that I have in my wall from my birthday still. And I just very clearly had the image for the cover pop up in my head, and I knew this is it. Scratch the houses, don't overcomplicate it. Let's make some balloons and make them cute and make them my style and make them something that I am happy with, which cue in the theme for 2024. So yeah, we have some cute little balloons with cheerful style, not cheerful style, cheerful colors, I guess. And I kind of just tried to make this theme, which not ideally, and essentially the concept for it is super simple, but that's what I have been usually doing for the past few months. I end up thinking initially of something super intricate to push myself, and then I end up realizing that I actually push myself more when I have to adapt something that is very simple into my style and make it feel like my own, which I guess that's also another thing that we're bringing into 2024. But yeah, really happy with how this turned out. And if you guys saw the setup for December, I tried out the idea of Dutch doors for the first time. I hadn't done it before. Apologies. I hadn't tried it before because I'm not a fan of the concept in the way that most people use it, but I did really like it and the way that I did for that setup. The reason why I don't like it is I usually use notebooks that have sprayed edges. It hurts my heart to cut into a lot of pages and ruin that style for the sprayed edges of the notebook. I feel like it's a big shame to do that. And also, if you cut in pages, let's say you cut in a few tabs like I did for the spread. Well, not tabs. I just cut in a little bit for 2 pages, 3, I think, for aesthetics or for whatever reason you're doing. When you turn the page and you finally go to a page that doesn't have that Dutch door, there is going to be a slight, not dent, but like texture for where there should be paper and there isn't, and there is the line between uncut paper and the pages that had the Dutch door. There is going to be texture, and that is going to affect the experience that you have whenever you're writing or drawing in the following pages of the notebook that don't have that Dutch door, which is why I tend to avoid that concept. I did it in December because it was literally as I was finishing the notebook. That's not going to be a problem for me anymore. And for this, I figured it's actually going to be so in the beginning of the notebook that as I go on in the notebook, it's not going to be a problem anymore because you don't really feel it all that much. So that's why I decided to do it. Also, it looks so beautiful. It looks so beautiful. And it saves you a lot of time, actually, because it adds a big component of decoration. Apologies, I have a cold. It adds a good amount of decoration without you having to have that much trouble to make that detailing in so many pages. If you can see, I'm going with this kind of lined cross lines. I feel like this isn't gingham. I wrote gingham to just know what I was going for, but I don't know if that's correct. But anyways, you can see I'm going with this grid style pattern on the side, and it will be the same fashion on the right there, and so it just adds this cute pop of detailing to the page. And by doing the Dutch door, I am able to have that effect in 6 pages rather than just 2 with the same amount of work. It's very, very nice that this is something that I'm capable of doing. So yeah, decided to reuse the Dutch door idea from last month and incorporate it into this year. And like I said, I wanted cheerful vibes for this year. I want to start off the year in as good as a mood as I possibly can. And I wanted something that felt like a celebration but didn't necessarily feel like a New Year's Eve theme. I know that a lot of times people usually do this actually for January, I feel like the most, where there'll be themes like for champagne or fireworks, or it generally feels very New Year's Eve-y, if that's not a word, but let's pretend like it is. My problem with that is generally from the bottom of my heart, New Year's Eve is my least favorite holiday of all time. It's just, I can't be the only one that feels that way. It's super anticlimactic. The lead up to it is way better than the thing itself. And I live in the northern hemisphere. It's cold. It's really cold. It's usually never really the best time of the year to be outside and celebrating. You just freeze your butt off waiting for the stroke of midnight. And sure, the fireworks are fun, but it's not it for me. I'm a homebody. I don't like spaces with that much people, especially if it involves drinking, because drunk people are stupid people, and usually people get drunk on New Year's Eve, and so I'm not a fan of the whole concept. I hope that this year I enjoy my New Year's Eve. I always hope that I do, and it's not necessarily like I have a horrible time on New Year's Eve, but it's just, in comparison to other holidays, it's just not my favorite vibe. So I wanted to kind of go with the more of a, I guess, birthday vibe of type of celebration rather than New Year's Eve. I wanted something that actually looked cool for me, because I figured that a lot of people actually really love New Year's Eve. I'm just not one of them, and so I wanted this to make sense for me, because I am gonna be the one that has to enjoy it. And I find that if I do not like the way that I set up my yearly setup, I don't really go back to it all that much, and it's a shame. So yeah, I'm just trying to make this as enjoyable for myself as possible, and if there are some people out there who feel like me, maybe this will give you a cool idea, or I don't know. Also, there are people that are probably watching from the southern hemisphere, and where you're watching is summer, and probably something that feels very wintry isn't gonna be fun for you, and it makes more sense to have something that kind of has summer vibes, which I guess this has a little bit. Hopefully you'll enjoy. We are working on my future log now. I decided to make it smaller than I usually do in past years. For one, because I am working with the Dutch door space, which is smaller than my usual space, but I realized that I don't really use my future log all that much, because I don't really usually have things that I need to write down that are that further into the future. Usually it's just like doctor appointments or birthdays. So what I did was I reduced the space that I usually have for each month by having a column specifically designed for birthdays, and for the space for the month I have space to write in like 4 things or 5 in each month, and that will serve me perfectly fine. It'll give me enough space to maybe write down maybe a doctor's appointment that I might have, maybe someone's birthday dinner, maybe some kind of appointment that I might have for something. Like I said, I don't usually book things that far in the future, well, at least with that many months in advance. Does that make sense? So it's not usually something that I need all that much. It's still really good to have on hand just in case, and so of course I still have it, but you know, just don't need it something that is as rich in a space. Going in for my next setup, I really like this. I know that some people will not like astrology. I am aware. Let me explain why I have a page for astrological events. I have it, honestly, it's very handy. I cannot begin to explain how handy it is. Few points. Let me make my case. Sorry. I believe that there are some astrological events that every person should have an account, that being new moons and full moons, Mercury retrogrades, I know it sounds cliche, hear me out, and eclipses. I'm gonna give you some very straight up reasons why I do this. First reason being, we know that the moon affects bodies of water. We know that she has, I'm using she, sorry, in Portuguese the moon is female, so I automatically refer to she. We know that the moon is very powerful as far as affecting waters. The human body is made up of 70% water, so in my mind it is no surprise that the moon would affect us. And since my mom told me, I was small when she told me this, when she was pregnant with me back in the day, which it wasn't that long ago, but I guess it still makes a difference as far as science, to predict the due date for pregnant women. The doctors, at least where she was going to, they would look at the calendar, they would like predict the weeks, and then they would look at when the moon would shift phase, and they would set that date as the due date. And they were usually right. Usually the moon, when it shifted phase, would cause pregnant women to go into labor, which I thought was so fun to think about. And then I remember I watched this TikTok about, I think it was an ER nurse or something like that, that spoke about how on full moons the ER would go crazy. Something would happen, all hell would break loose. And I started noticing, actually, in my work, I work for customer service, but I swear to you, every time there is a full moon, people go bananas. People go bananas. We just have a bunch of cases that we do not understand what the heck happened. People have gone insane, and it's just kind of insane. So I like to to write down new moons and full moons. New moons just because I usually feel energized around new moons. I don't know, I feel happy. And full moons because things can kind of feel a little bit intense and insane, so I feel like it's good to keep in mind. Also, because of my menstrual cycle, there are a lot of like old beliefs about women's cycles being aligned with the moon, and there are ideas about what it means for your health if you are bleeding on a new moon or on a full moon. You can easily look at that on Pinterest. I'm not going to bore you with those details, but it's useful for that, so I just keep in mind that for that. Eclipses, because they are full moons on drugs, and if people get crazy on full moons, they get even crazier around eclipses. I swear to you, I have specific people in my life that will absolutely go insane systematically every 6 months when there's an eclipse. Swear to you, I wish I was joking. I'm not, and so I like to have that in mind, just so when I understand that something is going on, I was like, okay, no, it's just stars are just moving upstairs. And Mercury retrogrades, because without a fail, if there's a Mercury retrograde, something happens at my work. I work at a company, we deal with technology. Mercury retrogrades are known for affecting technology, and something usually happens with my work. So I like to keep that in mind. So maybe keep that in mind in case you want to keep track of those things as well, or if you want to full-blown have a record of all of the astrological events that are going to happen, or if you just want to have a different kind of future log to track other things. I've mentioned that in the past, like if you have kids that go to soccer practice or something, if you just want to have a specific future log to track a specific type of event, maybe this would be a good idea for you. Just swap out the astrological for whatever you need. Moving on to my important events spread. I used this for the second half of 2023, and I really liked it. It's basically just this space where you can have, well, with future logs, you use it to organize for the future. With the astrological events page, you kind of just write things down and then use it to consult. With the important events, you use it to document things as they happen. Essentially, you have 2 boxes for each month of the year. Sorry. One box is for personal events, so you just kind of write down bullet points of things that have happened in your life that are important for you, and worldwide events. So in my country, there was a bit of a political complication going on, and our prime minister resigned. I wrote that down in my bullet journal for 2023. That's just an example of something that you could write down, or something that is specifically going on in your area, or whatever your heart desires. I really like this, just so that when I look back and I have that fuzzy brain of, wait, when did this happen? Was it January? Was it March? I have no idea. I actually know. I wrote it down, and it's good. As far as like, because it's strange, especially for like 2020, I really felt like I was just watching a major part of history going down. You know that feeling that you're like, my kids are gonna be studying this and asking me things, and I don't know how to answer them because I don't remember what the heck was going on. It's kind of inspired by that. I want to be able to document things properly, and then actually have a notion of what happened and when, because I do kind of lose track of that kind of stuff, especially because I'm not the biggest news watcher of all time. I try to watch it as least as I possibly can, because it does affect my mental health. Watching it too much, if you think about it, it's just, news are always negative. It's not really like a balanced broadcast of positive and negative things. It's pretty much just negative, and having that hour and a half or more of just negative feedback into my brain feels horrible, and so I try to detach from that a little bit. Maybe something to keep in mind if you want to reduce a bit of like negative sound in your mind, I guess. I try to make it as efficient as I can and just look at what happened afterwards, or look at it online. It just feels a lot more peaceful. But yeah, this is how I keep track of these things, and I pretty much used the same exact setup for last year, and I found that it worked pretty nicely. I feel like the space is pretty good for me to track everything down. For reference, I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the video. I use a B5 notebook, so if you are looking at this and thinking that feels a little bit bigger than an A5 notebook, it is. A B5 is a little bit bigger. I really like this size of notebook because it genuinely allows me to fit so much more into one notebook. For example, I fit almost everything into one notebook. I could definitely use one notebook per year while still having a good amount of spreads into one notebook. And I actually intend to do that this year, whereas I definitely cannot do that with an A5. Also, a B5 notebook allows me to have spreads that are decent sized so that I can write down everything that I need and still have space to draw things on the pages without it feeling cluttered. I had that problem when I had an A5 bullet journal. I had a few actually, and I always felt like for me to have enough space to write down everything and also draw, the pages start to feel very cluttered, and I didn't like that vibe. So I found the B5 notebook in 2022, I believe, and I haven't really looked back since. I still have some notebooks that are A5s, but I usually use them to do like to-do lists or just to write something down, like to journal or something, but not to organize my life. It doesn't really work for me anymore. So maybe if you're considering trying a different size or shape of bullet journal, maybe consider a B5. It has been very useful for me, so I definitely recommend it. This page, you're wondering why is there no title? What is this? This is just a vision board. I still wanted to have the same theme on the page, and so I didn't really want to just plop down the vision board in the middle of the notebook. I wanted to still have the theme, but I figured there's no point in really adding a title because I'm gonna know what it is as soon as I open it up and I see a collage on that. Basically what I'm gonna be doing, there is a blank space. Wow. There's a blank space for most of the page because I'm just gonna be making a collage on there of things that I would like to have in my life. I know that some people use this as like a manifesting situation. For me, it's just to kind of remind myself of what I'm working towards throughout the year and the things that I wanted at the beginning of the year. I feel like it's good to have that present. Also because I do have a little bit of a problem of out of sight, out of mind. If I don't have a visual reference of things, I usually kind of forget about them. I'm like this with food in my fridge, with medicine that I might have to take, and you better believe that I am also like that with things that I want to do. If I do not see them, I will forget them, probably because I likely have ADHD, but you know, that's another story for another time. But yeah, if you're like me, and if you have a big problem of out of sight, out of mind, and you tend to forget the things that you are working towards and whatever it is that you want to keep track of, if you are not visually in contact with it, maybe make a vision board. And also it helps if you have a bit more of a visual brain rather than a word brain, I guess. I don't know if that's the correct word for it, but I'm definitely a bit more of a visual thinker, and so having things in images helps with that. Does that make sense? This spread, I really like it. It's one of my most favorite spreads that I usually do for the year. It's my goals page and the path to success on the side. Here's the reasoning. Basically, so here's the thought process behind this because I'm actually proud. The vision board is kind of what I want to achieve. Let's say that the year is absolutely perfect. The vision board is my hopes and dreams for the year, right? It's the idealistic, utopian vision of what I want for 2024. And then we have the goals page, which is kind of like my realistic approach to those hopes and dreams, I guess. Well, establishing goals and splitting them down into categories. So we have skill development, which is the biggest one because I want to work on a lot more skills for the year. Personal growth, savings and finances, well-being, and a miscellaneous one because I feel like not every single goal that I have will fit into one of those boxes. And then the path to success is basically me breaking down the goals into steps, which I will have steps for each quarter of the year. I got this idea last year because, well, I work for a company, and companies split down their goals, their progress in quarters. Because let's face it, if you're tracking something, if you set out to do something, having this massive goal for the year feels very daunting, and it's easily something that you lose track of because it's, well, I have a lot of time. And it's this idea that, well, the amount of time that you allocate for a task is the amount of time that you're going to take to finish it. If you just think, I am going to lose 20 pounds in the year of 2024, it's very easy to absolutely do nothing towards that goal until like July because you think, well, the year is so long, I'm gonna have the last few months of the year to work on that. It's like, no, it's better to do steady and slow progress towards your goal than to stress yourself out and to procrastinate something that you then know you're not going to get around to do because you didn't give yourself enough time or enough planning. So the idea is you get the thoughts out of your brain, you brain dump them into the vision board, and you dream as big as you want, baby. With the vision board, you dream as big as you want. That is just hopes and dreams. And then you get a little bit more realistic for the goals, and you try to, have a realistic approach to them. And then the path to success is the plan for how you're going to reach those goals. Does that make sense? I am really happy with this concept. I really like it. I don't know if other people have made this before. Probably because I feel like no one really does anything new at one point. But I don't remember seeing anyone do this, and I'm really happy with this concept. Please do let me know if you use this. I'd be really happy to know if this is something that helps you organize yourself, because it definitely helps for me. Like I said, I'm a bit of a out of sight, out of mind kind of person, and so this helps me to visually see that translation of into my mind, from my mind into my pages, and to see it as an actual plan for something that is doable, which is exciting to then work on that. Next up, we have a page for things to try in 2024. Now, the setup for this is pretty identical to the vision board spread, other than the fact that this page, the space to write in this case, we're going to be writing in this, is smaller, and we do have a little bit of a header. But the concept for this is just a place for me to write down, both at the beginning of the year, things that I know at the start of the year that I want to try at some point throughout the year. And then as the year goes by, if someone mentions a TV show, if I find out about some type of new hobby, if I figure out, wait, I'm really into sewing and I found out this project that I like to try, I can just write that down on there, and I know that at some point in the year I want to try it. So if at some point I find myself with a little bit of time in my hands, or if I'm feeling it a bit crafty and I want to undertake some kind of a project, I can refer back into this and just see whatever it was that I had in mind to try sometime in the past. And this can also work for TV shows that I want to get into, books that I really want to read. I can just dump all of that in here and just pick up this spread whenever I feel like trying something new. I can just refer back to my past self for advice and pick that up to try. Again, out of sight, out of mind person, I will very easily forget that I want to try something if I do not write it down, if I do not have a visual aid to that. And so yeah, this kind of spreads, this actually really helps me. onto my last spread for this setup, which is actually my favorite, because this is my favorite since I set up my bullet journal last year. It was my favorite to refer back to, and I honestly feel like it was the only one that I consistently referred back to throughout the year, because it is a spread that needs to, let's say, be actioned consistently, whereas the other ones don't really. It's my reading log and my pages read per day for the year. So usually on this page I have my reading goals, I have my TBR. I changed it a little bit from last year, though it wasn't a massive change. I will have my reading goals for this year. I'm hoping to finally read 50 books this year. I have been having this as my goal for the past few years on Goodreads for God only knows how many years straight, and then I never accomplish it. So I always lower it a little bit more towards the end of the year so I don't feel horrible. I'm hoping to finally do that this year, and I think I'm gonna good track to do that, because I have miraculously throughout this these last few months of the year, I finally built a good and steady habit of reading, which I'm super excited by. It's generally one of my big personal development accomplishments of the year, so I'm really happy with that. And so I'm really excited for my reading year of 2024. I'm a big book nerd. I like reading, and it generally feels like I'm more connected to myself when I read a lot more. So I'm excited. My reading goal for 2024, let's hope that I can accomplish it, is 50 books. I am giving myself a little lee room with the books read. I wrote down 70. Honestly, just for aesthetic purposes, it looked better if I had 70 on there, because it filled up the space. And also, if I end up reading more than 50, I'm gonna need somewhere to write down those books. So here's to being optimistic that I not only achieve my goal, but I go above and beyond. Let's hope so. And I have a good, nice space for my TBR. And then for the pages read per day, it's kind of tricky. I don't really know if you can achieve this with one page if you have an A5 notebook, but you can definitely achieve it with 2 if you have an A5 notebook still, because you do need a good amount of space to have a box for each day in a size you can still write on there, because what we're doing here is we're actually writing the number of the pages that you read. And then at the bottom I have a little statistics part so that I can actually do the math of how many pages in total I read in a month, which is something that I really like. That I really like statistics and seeing how much I did of something. I'm competitive towards myself, so this is something that actually I really appreciate doing this. And like I said, it's the page that I go back towards the most with my yearly sub. So if you're a bit of a book nerd like me, hopefully this will fit your needs and be useful for you. Also, if you just want to take this for some other thing that you do consistently and that you want to work on more, maybe like minutes that you spend on Duolingo, I don't know, maybe this will be useful for you to track that down and to keep track of it. So yeah. And finally, it's time for the final flip through. I had so much fun making this bullet journal setup, and I hope I didn't ramble too much on my audio. I'm sorry if I did. I get excited for the new year, and I'm really happy with how this setup turned out. It's definitely some of my best work. I'm really happy with the final result. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that it gave you some cool ideas to bring on the new year and to get organized and to plan ahead and get excited. Please do let me know if you want to try this on your new bullet journal, if you'll be taking some of these ideas for spreads on your new bullet journal ventures. And thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Bye. Have a great year.